Welcome to the first Tokyo International Law Hub podcast. We have the winners of the 19th ICRC International Humanitarian Law Moot Court Asia Pacific round. We have Chris, Timothy, and May. They're all second year students from Peak, at the Peak program at Kumaba. And if you guys would like to introduce yourself with a few words, please go ahead. Can we start with Chris?
Hello, my name's Chris. I'm a second year student, as Paul said, at the University of Tokyo in the Peak program. And I am studying in JEA, which is Japan and East Asia. So it's like liberal arts, learning about a variety of different topics. And a part of this journey so far at university has been diving into the world of international humanitarian law, which sort of happened as an accident for me, and I guess for all of us. I don't think any of us were expecting to dive into this world, but yeah, I'm happy I took that class, and it's led us down this long journey to right now.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, Chris. And May, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. So, hi guys, my name is May, and I am in the exact same program as Chris is. So, I study at the University of Tokyo. I'm in my second year in the Japan and East Asia stream of Peak. And this experience of diving into the realm of IHL has allowed me to take my interest to the next step of law in general. When we think of law, it's an incredibly broad category, and it allowed me to tailor my interest to a certain field, which was international law, to international humanitarian law. So very honored to be a part of this experience. Thank you for having me here.
All right, that's great to hear. And Timothy as well. Would you like to talk about just your background?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Timothy. I'm also a second year in the Peak program studying in the Japan in East Asia stream. Unlike Chris and May, I was not one of the speakers in the competition. I was the lead researcher for the team, so I didn't win any individual awards. But yeah, I think the competition is definitely deepened my interest in IHL as well as international law, and I think that's the direction that I want to take for my studies in Tokyo in the next couple of years. Yeah.
Right. Nice to meet you guys. I mean, we've kind of talked a lot before because I'm just a year above you, and I've kind of did the national round as well last year. But I mean, I think just this year as well, just given kind of the circumstances of our time, kind of doing everything online. I think there's a lot of questions that you guys can answer about your unique experiences with this regional round. And just to immediately get into it, can I just ask how it was first preparing for this competition? Were there any differences between preparing for the national round that you guys first competed in before this? And I guess how confident were you going into it, and what kind of challenges did you expect to face?
I guess there were a lot of questions in there. Maybe to start with the differences between the national round and the regional round. I think the biggest thing was, I think we felt a lot less stressed, I think, going into preparation for regionals, because we had sort of, we'd gone through the whole process of research and preparation of the speeches once before. And so we sort of just easily like switched into gear when it came to, writing the memorials, and we sort of knew what to expect to some extent. But at the same time, I think one big difference was we didn't know like the quality or the what do you call it? Like we didn't know like how good the competition was that we were going up against. So I think, at least for me, I was a bit nervous about that, because in the national round, we sort of had a bit of an advantage being native English speakers, and so going up in the regional round against the best teams in Asia, we were a little bit, or at least I was a little bit uncertain of how good we would actually perform. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with Chris there. I knew that the stakes were definitely higher for the regional round in comparison to the national round, in terms of, competition, especially the fact that we were going against all these law students when we in fact are not, was definitely intimidating. But like Chris said, there was a foundation of the way in which we should prepare our research and write our memorials and prepare our oral speeches. So it was really 50-50 for me. There was a certain degree of confidence that we had acquired prior to moving on to the regional round. But at the same time, we knew that the competition that we'd faced would be much greater, which it in fact was. So yeah, it's 50-50 for me.
Well, I think I might have to disagree a little bit with Chris and May there. For me, I think one of the big differences preparing for the regional round was that, like, in the regional, while preparing for the regional round, we know what we don't know in a way. Whereas in the national round, we just entered the competition without really knowing what we kind of like entered into. Like we definitely drilled about we practiced about IHL and stuff like that. But I think in the regional rounds, a lot more of the questions was also about the understanding of the ICC, and that's something that we were completely oblivious about in a national round. So I think preparing for the regional round, one of the big differences is actually learning more about not only IHL, but also the instrument in which IHL is being kind of overseen, which is the ICC. So yeah, I think for me, that's the big difference. Mhm.
Right. Yeah, I think those are some kind of great insights into, I guess, how you guys felt going into the competition. I'd like to just more ask in more detail about how your actual preparation went. So the process of kind of building up your case, meeting with your coach, doing the research, and your individual roles within the team, because I think that's a lot of stuff that's not really discussed within moot court preparation. And given your results and given kind of your, I guess, chemistry with each other, which kind of visible to me, I'd just like to ask you guys how your meetings went and how your research was.
So in the beginning, it was really difficult for me actually to, I guess not just for me, but like for everyone to decide like who like the two speakers are gonna be, because we came as like a 3-person team, and yeah, only 2 people are going to speak. So one of the first questions that we had to answer was actually deciding who the speakers are gonna be, and I think I realized that Chris and May were definitely the better speakers, and I have full confidence that they can deliver and they can perform well in the regional round. So I kind of took a step back and said, like, I'll just be the lead researcher, and the 2 of you can be like the speakers. And yeah, as the researcher, I think I know that everyone in the group already had a good foundation on like IHL. So I focused more on preparing for the ICC kind of questions, looking at the different kind of like cases already brought to the ICC and other international criminal tribunals as well. And yeah, I guess that's my role.
Yeah, adding on to what Tim was saying, when it comes to preparation, there's first a need to understand the case that you're given, which already in itself was a major task for us. There are an immense amount of details that you have to comprehend. And from there, you start your research onto looking at different tribunals, different cases, and understanding the terms that are being used. So for me, I'd say that was the most challenging element. Unlike Tim and Chris, I didn't have a coherent understanding of what, an article was or what kind of purpose these cases would serve. And that's where both Chris and Tim really helped me get on my feet and gain a better understanding of it. And like Tim said, I think the reason why we worked so well as a team is because we were not only aware of each and everyone's strengths and weaknesses, but we were able to assign unspoken roles to one another. So we worked really well collectively. It wasn't as strict as people would think. And yeah, it was just history from there, I'd say.
Yeah, I have a few points. Firstly, about like our coach, I think we were really blessed to have Professor Kihara Hunt Sensei as a coach, because she was just, you know, from the very beginning, even in the national round, just so dedicated to us, and, you know, seeing us, you know, succeed and grow as a team. And so even in the regional round, in terms of like our dynamic with Professor Kihara Hunt, we would do just like numerous oral practices, and we were also fortunate enough to have ICRC Japan supporting us by setting up sessions with judges from the national round, and also, you know, like previous competitors who had gone to the regional round in Japan. And so, you know, we just had numerous chances for oral practice, both with Professor Kihara Hunt and them. And also Professor Kihara Hunt would also just be available for, you know, any questions that we would have. And so I took it upon myself to really get clear on the questions that I had, the things that I was struggling with, and then I would sort of get it all together, you know, have like a list of maybe 5 or 6 questions that I'm struggling with, and then I would just send it to her, and just knowing that she would be able to support us in, you know, pointing us in the right direction to where we can find resources about how to answer these questions. So that's what I really supported, what I loved about her support. Sorry. And then in terms of, I think I had one point about the memorials. So I think we realized the importance of having a strong memorial going into the competition. And I think Tim stressed this the most. Like if you don't put effort into the memorial, then it makes it very hard to make a strong case in the actual round, because the enemy team will just pick apart, you know, the weak points in your memorial. Luckily, that didn't happen much for us, even though we definitely had some weak parts in our memorials. But we definitely exploited that in other teams' memorials. So I think just general advice for everyone, and also us, like going into the, like future moot courts, if we do, is yeah, just spend a lot of time trying to get your arguments as robust as possible before you even start the oral preparation. Because what seemed to happen to us both times was, in the oral preparation, you know, we would realize that our memorial was just riddled with mistakes that would have been so easy to fix, or you know, arguments that with just a little bit of tweaking could have become a lot stronger. And then my final point, in terms of like the round itself, so yeah, like the preparation for the oral round, I found it incredibly useful to go really deep into the history of the cases on a certain topic. So for example, I was in charge of one of the counts, and the mental element for this count was aiding and abetting. That was the criminal liability. And I remember being just so confused at all of these conflicting opinions in different ad hoc tribunals and the ICC. And then Kihara Hunt Sensei sent me this, you know, brilliant like article. It was like a chapter of a book that just went through the whole history of aiding and abetting at the ICC and other tribunals. And I'm just like, you know what? I'm just going to read this entire chapter. It was like 70 pages or something. And I cannot stress like how much that helped me, just knowing the history of these cases. And then, you know, in the oral round, when I heard them citing a case, it's like I know exactly when that case was and how the opinions in that case would conflict and go in, like how authoritative it was, etc. So yeah, I think just being really clear about your cases and the history of them takes a lot of preparation, but it really pays off in the oral round. Yeah, sorry, that was a long answer, but there were a few points.
Nah, thank
Can
you.
I add on to Chris's
Oh yeah, go
answer?
ahead.
Yeah, I think just the point on the memorials, I think even for us, we, while writing our memorial, we don't really have a clear understanding of what the mood problem is all about. I mean, we do have a sense of what the mood problem is about, but like the specific details and the most contentious points of each counts, like we are still kind of a little like blurry on that kind of stuff. So, and I think it really clicked on us, and everything just became like super clear, I think, during the competition itself, while we were preparing for one of the rounds. So I think if you one advice for future mooters is to just completely dissect and even draw visual aid of what the mood problem is about, because I think it will help you in writing your memorial and help you in coming up with better arguments. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you guys really demonstrate like this. Oh, would you like to say something, Chris?
I was just going to say that visual aid point, like you have no idea how helpful Tim's drawings were. Just to, visualize the scenario of what would be happening in this scenario, in the problem. That helped us, like, yeah.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people have questions about how much effort and time it takes to prepare and these memorials, which are, really long, and kind of the performance itself, which also is very long. And I think more related to the performance and the actual oral pleadings that you guys had to give in the competition, could you guys just go a little bit into detail about how the judges asked questions? Was it more based on your fundamental knowledge, and like how, I guess, jarring was it in certain occasions where they would ask something to try to throw you off?
So
Yeah,
I think,
go ahead.
Okay,
No,
so
you go.
sorry. I think the biggest part of prepping for your oral speech is preparing for every possible question that'll be thrown your way. But obviously, it's impossible to foresee every question that the judge is going to ask. You're always going to be thrown a random joker card, and you're going to have to be able to answer. And for Chris and I, at least, we had prepped a lot for every possible question regarding the terminology, regarding the legal basis, cases that we can use to back up our arguments. And we obviously prepared for the worst, I think. Starting the general round, the number of questions and the type of questions that were asked, I think, qualitatively increased as we went to the quarter semifinals as well as the semifinals. But what helped us was that we could draw from those questions and prep even further for the next round. So there were many types of questions. You will definitely, for future mooters out there, have to know the legal basis of your arguments, which I was very weak on, which Tim was nice enough to do a crash course for me, literally a day before the competition. You will have to know cases that you can refer to and know your facts. So the case that you're working with inside out. And judges have very different backgrounds. Some are legal advisors, some are lawyers, some work for the UN. You're going to have different types of judges. So they're very selective when it comes to these answers, and they've chosen them well, I'd say. So be prepared for the unknown, I guess, which is hard.
Yeah, to bounce off that, there's a couple of things. Yeah, definitely being prepared for the unexpected is a huge thing. And one unexpected thing that can sort of be prepared for a little bit is, there are going to be questions that they ask that you are going to answer later in your speech, but you need to make sure that your speech is dynamic and flexible. You need to be able to jump around in a coherent way, so that, if you're talking about the actus reus of like a something, like this is what they did, and then they ask you, oh, but something about the mental element, the mens rea. You need to be able to not say, oh, I'm going to answer that. Can I come back to it? You need to jump to the mens rea, then tie it back in seamlessly. And so that really takes, basically, you don't just copy your memorial for the oral pleading. You need to be able to, make things modular. And also, like one of the biggest things is like time management. So like, what sort of parts can you leave out if you're short on time, and how can you sort of navigate and maneuver the judges, because, and this is something that we were told when we were practicing with, this is advice that we were given from a previous mooter. He said, like, don't forget that you're in the driver's seat in your speech. So you're actually guiding the judges, along on this journey. And so you have the power to make your answers as long or as short as you want, and then sort of drive the conversation the way you want it to go. And that really is what it is. It's a conversation, it's a dialogue with the judges. And so, don't expect that your speech is going to go the way you expect it to, because that's just never what's going to happen. And also just in terms of some other unexpected questions, especially in the semifinals, was it the quarters or the semifinals? They ask things like, what if I don't agree with you? Just out of nowhere, they'll say, what if the court disagrees with what you said? What then? And then, so in that case, you need to be able to have a totally alternative argument, even if that's your strongest argument. Yeah, and yeah, so that was I think the biggest unexpected question that I got from a judge. He's like, "What if I disagree with you? What now?" Yeah.
Yeah. I don't really like that question because we've already established like A, we've already drawn on like evidence, factual evidence from the mood problem for A. We've established the legal basis for A, but then the judge just completely dismissed it and said, "Oh, what if I just look at D then?" Which I don't think is a fair question, but I think it really tells you the kind of like uh, intention these judges have while they're asking you. Like, I don't think these are the kind of questions that they would ask normally in court. Rather, they're just asking you to test your knowledge on two things: the like factual understanding of the mood problem, and two, like the legal understanding of the legal basis for all those concepts, right? And I think the kind of the quality of like the questions and the intensity in which the judges asked the questions were completely different um, uh, for the quarterfinal rounds and before, and the semifinal rounds and the final rounds, because I think for the quarterfinal rounds and the general rounds, you can get away with just answering the question by either just looking at the facts or looking at the legal basis for some of the concepts. Whereas I think one good advice that some of the judges told us was to, in the final round, to connect the legal basis and the facts from the mood problem, and kind of like synthesize those two together for you to be able to like get the full kind of points for the questions. So yeah, I think that's one of the points that I want to bring up. Another point is like, I think it's a little wise. I think it's wise for you guys to just do a quick Google search of who the judges are and what their backgrounds are, because I think May was the main Googler for our team, and like she was able to find out, oh, this judge is a lawyer with this judge is a political scientist. If he's a lawyer, then he's going to ask more legal questions. If he's not a lawyer, then he's probably going to look into like the facts from the mood problem more. So yeah.
Right. I mean, yeah, I think you guys went into incredible detail about, I guess, your strategy when you're mooting, and a lot of that stuff haven't really found in other websites or other sources. So, thank you for that. I mean, just another question that I had was like, do you have any go-to lines for when you don't really know the answers to whatever the judge is asking, or any, I guess, cues that you can give to your teammates to help out, or just how do you escape from a question that you can't come up with an answer on the spot?
I mean, sometimes you don't have an answer when you're thinking on your feet. And I know for me, I froze a couple of times, and I just wasn't able to deliver the answer that they wanted. But I think if you do some mental gymnastics and you sort of you bring in a case and say, oh, if we look at this case, you can sort of divert their attention away from what they asked and maybe just bring it back to the case in a way. As long as you sound like you know what you're talking about, you can sort of pull off diversion tactics.
Yeah. I think one strategy that I observe from other teams, not necessarily our team, is that they'll just give a non-answer, like a non-answer answer, and just try to brush off the question and move on with their submission, which is one way to approach those kind of situations. But I don't think that's a good idea. And like we discussed this, the three of us, about whether or not we should kind of like adopt that kind of approach. But I think it will just net you like minus points, because the judges will think that you don't really understand, or you're uncomfortable with the question and you just want to like move on really quickly. I was talking to May about this, and I think we kind of like agreed on just saying like, oh, I'm sorry, like, Your Honor, like I don't really know the answer to that question. And yeah, just like admit that you don't really know what the question is all about, or like how to answer the question properly, which I think will net you minus points as well, but at least will make it look like you're a more honest person. Yeah.
So just oh, sorry, Chris.
I was just going to say another point on that note is, and also advice that we got from one of the judges in the regional round is, don't don't feel scared to take some time, take a few seconds to really absorb what they were trying to ask you. So a lot of the times, they're asking you really specific things. And, if you just like, if you're listening with the intent to just answer, rather than listening with the intent to understand what they're saying, then it's very easy to just give a non-answer, like Tim was saying.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, take a few seconds as well to really try to understand what they're asking you can work wonders.
Also, in terms of answering tactics, what we would oftentimes do, well, what judges would do is they would talk about their idea and their conflicting opinions. And then they will say, what do you think about that? And after talking for literally 3 minutes, and it's really hard to pinpoint what their question is. So don't be afraid to ask a judge to rephrase or restate their question. And oftentimes what they'll do is they'll simplify their question into something that's much easier to answer or that's much easier to understand. So don't be afraid to ask a judge to repeat themselves. And another thing that judges will try to do is catch you off guard or try to divert you off the track that you want to stay on by introducing another alternative argument, something that comes into conflict with your own. It's okay to disagree with a judge if you do it in a respectful way. I would oftentimes start my answers with, respectfully, I would disagree with that, or I would disagree with your statement for these following reasons, and link it back to your original argument. So in cases that you really can't answer them, as long as you tailor it back to your own and you just keep your position, right? Know your stance. I think that's one other important factor to keep in mind.
Yeah, I think that's a really prudent advice from like May about knowing your stance, and also like don't be afraid to stand your ground. Like these judges, they might seem scary, they're actual law practitioners, but they'll try to shake you off. And sometimes if you just buy into their argument and like say, okay, I guess you're right, like it's much more difficult to develop further arguments from there. I think one good thing to do is to just disagree with the judges. I think that's completely right. Yeah, that's a really good thing to do.
Yeah. Again, this great insights, and I think just turning now to how you feel after your strategy proved to be very auspicious and got you to a high position. And some reflection on it, I'd like to ask you, what gave you the edge over all these other teams? Like whether they're from they're from very legal backgrounds, but again, I think my experience last year as well, and kind of your experience, we don't really have that inherent law school background. We're not very trained in kind of international humanitarian law, and we've had to pick up sources here and there. And given that, what do you think gave you the competitive edge, or like the chance to almost win this competition?
I'll just start by saying something that Chris and May would never say because they're too humble. I think one of our advantages is that Chris and May are really good speakers, and like we have a really good starting ground, and we don't really need to practice our submission style, like speaking style, that much, because Chris and May, they're already like solid speakers. Yeah, so we only had to practice for like the legal questions and the factual questions.
I think, yeah, one thing that maybe gave us an edge is that we played to our strengths. Like we didn't try pretend that we were someone we were not, even in the preparation for the oral pleadings. Like, I'm definitely not as strong when it comes to research. And so outsourcing that to Tim was just like, it freed up so much like mental bandwidth that I could just focus on, the things that I needed to focus on for my account, and then just trusting that, we would have that support from Tim. And also, I mean, in terms of edge, maybe in the oral rounds, I think we all noticed it was in the the semifinals, when May and I thought for sure that we had lost. Like we had resigned to the fact that we lost against this incredible team, which I think was University of Philippines, who they were just immaculate speakers, so eloquent. They answered everything, without hesitation. And then so, we just for sure thought that we had lost. But one thing that we did notice is that we thought that we brought more maybe passion to our submission. And I don't know, there's something in me that says that gave us the edge, at least in the semifinals. You know, while they spoke incredibly well, and I totally envy how, you know, their speaking skills and their knowledge of international law. But in the end, when it comes down to it, this might be a fictitious case, but we are either, you know, trying to convict or indict or defend this war criminal. And so you got to bring some passion to the speech. You know, you've got to, you know, bring it alive. And I think that's what we really tried to do in the semifinal and in the final as well. So
Yeah,
maybe that gave us an edge as well.
I'd completely agree with what Chris said. It's one thing to have the knowledge and be prepared to deliver an oral submission, and it's another to really let that seep into your skin and become a part of yourself. Don't try to play a character, although you are playing the, you know, the role of a lawyer here, perhaps. It sounded very natural when I listened. Maybe I'm biased because I love my team so much, but it sounded natural to listen to Chris's oral pleading. It didn't sound like it was forced or robotic in any way, shape, or form. It sounded like he was very much defending or prosecuting a war criminal, and it sounded very, very natural. So let it sink in. And I guess that's where your passion plays a really big role. If you're passionate or interested in defending or prosecuting a war criminal, then it'll just naturally shine through you, and it will deliver to the judges as well. So don't try to play a role, just let it flow as it is. And I think that is what helped us a lot here.
And also, just final words on that. I mean, I think what gave us the biggest edge was having Tim and Professor Kihara Hunt, who just had unwavering support. Like, I was just overflowing with appreciation on the final day, you know, especially, you know, after we found out that we got through to the finals. I was just like, my heart skipped a beat. Like, I was in shock for like 2 minutes, like trying to process what was going on, like the fact that we got through. And just, you know, the fact that Tim never gave up on us at any stage of that weekend, of the 4 days. It just, yeah, I don't know. That definitely gave us an edge, having Tim and Professor Kihara Hunt just like having this, you know, resolute, steadfast support the whole way. Yeah, wanted to appreciate them.
I was so confident that you guys would make it to the finals. Like, I was more surprised that you guys didn't think you guys are gonna make it to the finals.
Right, and I'm sure that a lot of people are passionate about prosecuting war criminals, but not a lot of people can kind of deliver their passion like your group. So, again, a lot of credit to you guys. And last question for this podcast would be, how do you feel now that you've won, and what's your future in IHL or Moot Court, or you know, what do you see yourself doing after this win or near win?
You know, without making it sound as cliche as it possibly could, I have nothing but complete and full gratitude for not only the process, but being able to do this alongside Chris, Tim, and Professor Kihara Hunt. I really do think we were the dream team. I've never worked better in a team setting, and I've never had this immense support given out by every team member. So I have zero regrets whatsoever in terms of, you know, performance, delivery, and the effort that we put in. However, there are, you know, many improvements that we can still make and we can learn from, of course, through, you know, oral submissions, but also in terms of research. You can never have enough practice, like Tim said. So looking forward to use my time more efficiently, like Chris said as well. And yeah, just as long as you have the passion and you're driven to working on something, that's what matters. And yeah, I just feel incredibly honored to be able to partake in this experience. Never did I ever think we would come this far, honestly speaking. So it has been a great journey for me.
I think I completely agree with May. And as I've said earlier in the beginning of the podcast, like this competition has definitely deepened my interest for IHL as well as international criminal law. So there's some more academic stuff that I want to do with international criminal law as well as IHL. Maybe some posts or some journal writings, you know, on the UTokyo International Law Hub. I don't know. It's still very unclear, but as for like future competitions, I have another Moot Court competition. This time I'll be speaking, and Chris and May can hopefully help me as the researcher. And like May and I, we also have another competition related to IHL, but not necessarily a moot court towards the end of the year. So like I'm looking forward to that. I'm super excited for it. Yeah.
I think maybe paradoxically realize that I do not want to go into this field as like at least as a practitioner or a lawyer. While I do have a really deep interest in this field, owing to this competition and this class from Professor Kihara Hunt. But yeah, I don't know. I think this competition helped me realize that this isn't actually what I want to do, but the skills that I learned and the sort of like all of that, I want to bring that into whatever it is that I do. And I don't really know what that's going to be yet, but I definitely do see myself at some point wanting to go into the field, like actually, see what is happening in some of these countries, see what the reality is, and talk to some of these people, rather than just like reading and writing about something like, I don't know, genocide or refugees, internally displaced peoples, like actually go and talk to them. I want to hear their stories and I want to communicate that and share that. I definitely see that as something I'm passionate about. So yeah, I don't know, this competition has helped me realize a lot of things.
Thank you. And I guess before we conclude the podcast, I'd just like to go around and ask you, is there anything that I guess that you want to promote right now that you're maybe part of, or like anything that how can people find you if they're kind of interested in reaching out and learning more?
Well, I'm working on a LinkedIn. I'm stepping into the LinkedIn world. So if anyone would like to connect with me, you can type my name in on LinkedIn, Chris Clayton. I don't have anything in particular that I would like to promote. Although I wish the best of luck to any mooters in training out there, or anyone who is interested in diving into this world. I highly recommend giving this competition a try. It's just an incredible experience, and you'll learn and grow a lot. So I definitely recommend it.
Well, I have yet to set up my LinkedIn profile, which I probably should do. But if anyone has any questions or interest concerning this, I would 100%, be there to support or answer any questions. Feel free to DM me on Instagram, Facebook, whatever it is. Tim, why are you laughing? And best of luck to everyone out there. Whatever it is you're working on, it's so easy to feel like you're not doing the best you can, or you're not doing enough compared to the brilliant people that's surrounding you. But don't give up on that. You're doing amazing and you're on the right track. And even if you aren't, it's through these kind of experiences that you find out what is for you or what's not for you. So challenge yourself. This is the year, guys. This is a time. So yeah.
Yeah. So if you guys want to contact me, I also have a LinkedIn account. I don't know why we're talking so much about LinkedIn, but I guess this is going to go on YouTube, right? So you can find my LinkedIn in the description box below.
Is it?
Yeah, or yeah, in the description box somewhere. And like some words for future mooters, I think is you're embarking on a really difficult, but at the same time really fun journey. So yeah, try to enjoy the ride, and don't give up before you lose. I think don't quit before you lose. I think that's a really good advice. And lastly, if you can make the journey with people that you enjoy, people that you like, I think they'll be like a great plus for you. So yeah, good luck.